What's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be doing a tier list, grunge tier list, and yeah, that's pretty much it. We got a couple albums on here, and just to be clear, if you don't see an album that you have in mind, I did not make this freaking thingamabobber. So somebody else made this. I found it on tiermaker.com, and yeah, I'm just going to rank these grunge albums because I used to be the grunge king. AKA I'm retired, but still enjoy it. But yeah, let's get into it. I say that somebody else made it, which someone did. I found this somewhere else, but I did adjust the tier thingamabobbers right here. As you can see, I have S, A, B, mid, D, all in the tier ranking thing. So yeah, I fixed that thing. They said something like amazing, all this stuff, but just to make it, I guess, simpler or traditional, with the tier making things, I put the letters and I put mid because there's some mid albums in here. And let's start off with Superunknown. I believe that I don't really have to explain myself too much because, we got a lot of legendary songs on here. You got Spoon Man, you got 4th of July, you got freaking obvious Black Hole Sun. There's a bunch of legendary tunes on here. My favorite on this album being 4th of July, just because that riff is so disgusting and the vocals when they come in, it is an absolute masterclass from Soundgarden. And I don't think I gotta explain too much about this freaking album because it is what it is. It's legendary at this point. It was legendary when it first released, and yeah, even though I wasn't there, but yeah. I have it at S tier. All right, so the next album on the list is Stone Temple Pilots' album Core. In my head, I don't know why I was trying to battle within myself and say, this isn't S tier, is it? Like, it can't be. We can't have back-to-back S tiers. But I think it's an S tier album, dude. Stone Temple Pilots, one of those bands that I feel like I should have never liked because back in my heyday when I was really into just being determined as this grunge guy and only grunge is this type of music's the only music I listen to, I was really mad at people that would group Stone Temple Pilots into the whole grunge thing, and that's because they're not from Seattle, they're not from Washington, they're not from just this area. But I feel like at this point they're kind of just within that sort of freaking genre, and you could fight it all you want, but it is what it is, you know what I'm saying? Now, with the music itself, there's an abundance of tunes on here. You got Dead and Bloated, you got Wicked Garden, you got Plush, you got Creep. I mean, there's just so many tunes on here that have really stood the test of time, and you listen to these songs today, and it's just like, wow, okay, huge impact for a lot of people. And I never disliked Stone Temple Pilots, and even when I fell off a little bit with the grunge music, I started listening to other bands and other genres and just expanding my freaking ears. I always look back at Stone Temple Pilots and I'm like, damn, they released some great music in their prime, and that's why I have them at S tier. Now this next one is not an album, but it's by Alice in Chains, and this is Sap. Yeah, I don't know. This is an EP, but it's here, so I'm gonna grade it. So with an EP, it's gonna be a little bit shorter than an album. That's kind of the gist of the whole thing. But when I look at the music, I do believe that there are some strong tunes on here. You got Brother, you got Right Turn, which includes freaking Chris Cornell, and you got Mark Arm in there. Alice in Chains, obviously. And I feel like that freaking abundance of legendary humans in music, I'm not going to say it's an A tier or even S tier. I feel like you'd be crazy, but I'm not going to lie to you, man. It's probably closer to mid for me. I'm not gonna hold you, bro. Now, I don't think it's fair because it's not an actual album, but it's here, so I'm just going to be respectful and put it on this list. I still think there's some good songs on there, but I don't think that the songs on here are so freaking amazing, so legendary to the point where it catapults them to a B or an A. And I think you're ludicrous if you put this at S tier. That's just my opinion. And yeah, I think this is pretty mid, but still legendary in terms of mid. So yeah, mid for Sap. All right, next album on the list is from Soundgarden, and that is Badmotorfinger. And I have to think about this one a little bit. So this was a early 90s album, I think 92, somewhere around there. And during that time, there were so many legendary albums coming out, obviously. And I'm not going to say I'm comparing them to those albums, but when I look at the landscape, I feel like this album is legendary. But to me, when I listen to it, I mean, you got Outshined on there, and that riff alone is disgusting and has influenced a lot of people. So you got Outshined on there, you got Rusty Cage, and I don't know if it's a hot take, but I have never been a humongous fan of Rusty Cage like that. I mean, it's not a dumb song, it's not stupid, but the riff kind of puts me off a little bit. The vocals are, it's Chris Cornell, so I can't really complain there. But to me, that song is just not it for me. I always thought it was a little bit overrated, but this album has aggression. They kind of have just this aura about them that they're coming and they're here and they've been here for a while, but they're just like putting their foot down and being like, yeah, we're Soundgarden. So I respect that. But I don't know, man. I don't know. You know what? I'm comfortable with this album being at B. I don't think it's mid. It's not an S tier. I don't view this album as an S tier whatsoever. I mean, on this album, you also have Slaves and Bulldozers, and that song is freaking disgusting and in a good way, obviously. Very powerful, very heavy. It's a B album. All right, Alice in Chains, Facelift. This. You got Man in the Box on here. You got It Ain't Like That. It Ain't Like That. That riff. Oh my goodness. Jerry Cantrell, the man that you are. I can't believe you've done this to my soul. You also have We Die Young on here. Sea of Sorrow. Bleed the Freak. I think they have Love, Hate, Love on here as well. I feel like the only categories that Facelift can really be in is A tier or S tier. Anything below that, I feel like you're just kind of tripping, dude. You're like really sauced up on that freaking glizzy sauce or something. I have no idea what's happening, and I don't understand what's with your mental, but I think it's a SA album easily. I actually have a VHS, Alice in Chains VHS over there. I'm pointing at my TV, and dude, I would replay that like crazy. It was in black and white, and Love, Hate, Love would be playing. Man in the Box when Lane Staley had his glasses on, and they're just like, oh my god, bro. The aura within this band and the music that they put out as their first album is freaking crazy, dude. And a lot of people seem to forget that Alice in Chains were really the first big, to hit the freaking radio stations really big type of band for Seattle and grunge. People think it's Nirvana, but no, it's actually Alice in Chains with Man in the Box. So there's that too. So they're great. They're great. All right, next up is another EP, and not an album, but it's an EP, and you got Jar of Flies by Alice in Chains. This is one depressing AF fall weather sounding album, and I love it. I don't think it's an S tier, but I do believe that is an A tier. The amount of sad songs on here is not disturbing, but there's a humongous piece of beautifulness within this album and the sadness that I adore and a lot of people really enjoy. You got Rotten Apple on there. You got freaking a bunch of different stuff, and I have it at A. That's the first A in this video. Alice in Chains Dirt, S tier, dude. I mean, I don't think I gotta say anything crazy like that. It's kind of like the freaking Superunknown album from Soundgarden. There isn't much to say. I do think that if we're looking at like a freaking ranking thing, Alice in Chains S tier, number one S tier type of album. It's ridiculous. I don't gotta say too much. It is what it is. They are that band. They are Alice in Chains. Dirt. That's the prime. And hell yeah. All right, next up we got Purple by Stone Temple Pilots. And dude, there's a lot of bangers on here, dude. I could see a lot of people arguing that this is probably an S tier album, but I don't know if it's actually S tier, bro. In my opinion, the best song on here is Big Empty. That song is beautiful, man. It just sounds like a beautiful cigarette for some reason, just on the ground at a gas station in 1994 or 6, whatever. And yeah, I don't know if it's an S tier. There's a lot of hits on here. Obviously, you got Interstate Love Song. That's probably their biggest hit. You got freaking Vaseline on here. Meat Plow is a really, really good song that sounds like dirt bikes and strip clubs or something. I don't know. I think, dude, I'm thinking about it. I think this is kind of B tier, bro. I'm not gonna lie to you. It could be A tier. I understand if you want it at S, but this is can I switch that? There you go. I would have this at B first place, and it's like a B plus though, so I'm not even close to thinking that this album is mid. All right, next album we got the legendary Louder Than Love album by Soundgarden. My favorite Soundgarden song probably ever is Hands All Over, and it's on this album. That was the first song I feel like as a music enjoyer where I was listening to this song and I could really feel the drums on there for some reason. That was really my awakening with the drums. I paid attention to them and it kind of just held me right there. And Matt Cameron, the legendary drummer from Soundgarden, later on did Pearl Jam and all that stuff. His drumming on here, it really just like opened my third eye in terms of like a band's instruments and all this stuff. So that always holds a special place in my heart. I really adore this album, and Hands All Over, freaking goated. But dude, I don't know if I'm gonna get people mad here, but I feel like this is a high B tier album. I don't think it's A tier. To me, there's a couple songs on here that I skip, and it's it's a really good album, but I don't think it's A tier necessarily. I'm curious to know where you guys have this. Maybe at S tier, maybe I don't freaking know, you have it as the worst Soundgarden album. I think you'd be crazy if you thought that. But yeah, that's where I have that. Okay, so the next album we have is Soundgarden's Down on the Upside. And I was listening to this the other day, just trying to get myself, within the album and trying to recap those emotions and stuff. And I listened to this album and I'm like, dude, this is the saddest Soundgarden album, bar none. I don't even think it's close. In my personal opinion, I feel like Zero Chance is probably the saddest song on here. I mean, there is a song called Pretty Noose. So, there's a lot of sad tunes on here. And I was just like, man, this is depressing. But once again, there's a beauty within that type of sadness. And I really enjoy this album. I think it's a really, really strong album. And honestly, I have this at A tier. That's how much I love this album. And that might shock you because I have freaking Badmotorfinger. I have Louder Than Love at B tier. But I just feel like there's a lot of consistency within this album that I am enthralled by, bro. It's such a freaking good time, a depressing time, but it's real, and that's kind of what you want sometimes, or most of the time. All right, next album on the list is Versus by Pearl Jam. And dude, I wish I could like this album like that, bro, but I just don't. I think it's so mid, and it's so unfortunate because Pearl Jam, with their first debut album, 10, was absolutely amazing, but every album after that just really, really does not hit the sweet spot, if you know what I'm saying. There is some sort of aggressiveness within this album, but it just doesn't feel the same, It just feels a little bit watered down. It doesn't give me that emotion that 10 did. And I know it's a different album, so there's probably a different type of inspiration and all that jazz. But it does nothing to me, man, and I think it's mid. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world, but I believe that it is mid. All right, next album up, we have freaking Dog Album by Alice in Chains, or Tripod, whatever you want to call it. There's a lot of different names. This dog is definitely dead at this point in time in 2024, but the aura on the dog, a lot of points for this album. No, I'm joking. It's a cool looking dog though. Respect. R.I.P. probably. I don't know. This album is so good. So good. It's Alice in Chains, and they're probably the most consistent grunge band, or one of the most consistent bands ever, bro. You don't even got to say grunge. They're one of the most consistent bands ever. I don't feel like they have a lot of songs that are bad, which is so rare to have, dude. Like, you know how hard it is to, I know it's a freaking, what's it called? A subjective type of thing to say a band has no bad songs because everybody feels different. But Alice in Chains is one of those bands where it's like you could put on any album and they're going to have good tunes all around. And dude, Grind, Jerry Cantrell, disgusting. Are you kidding me? Frogs, wow, like that just sounds like a scary video game. You got Sludge Factory, you have Again, and this was the last album by Alice in Chains with Lane Staley as a member, which sucks because he was so good, dude. He was so good at just showing emotions and having that raw power within his vocals, even at this point when he was deteriorating like crazy with all the drug usage, which is so sad. But this album still kicks ass, even when Lane Staley was probably at a low point, and I know it went really bad towards the end. But dude, Enough Glazing, I can't lie, bro. This is a album. I just think that the scenery within the album is so in your face, and it's like a powerful depressing tool that is just drilling you. Pause, resume, rewind, play. And yeah, dude, I'm infatuated with this album. And yeah, all right, Vitalogy, whatever, by Pearl Jam. There's actually this one song on here that I really like. I just had to look at the track list right now. That's how I forgot about the name. It's Not For You. Not For You page. No, it's Not For You. I love that song. The way his like voice, like he like uses this twang within it, and then it has like this grit almost. I'm just like, dude, Eddie Vedder. I like that. And the riff, it just feels like a Western type of vibe and just a cowboy vibe, I guess. And I really like that song. I also believe this is at mid, but it's a strong mid, you know. I actually prefer it more if you know, to verses or whatever. So yeah. All right, next up we got Ultramega OK by Soundgarden, and honestly, bro, it is not my favorite. I have it at D, which kind of speaks volumes. Not really. I'm nobody, but I have it at D. I love the song Flower. That's a great song, but everything else on here just feels very forgettable and just it's whatever, man. You know, it's not my favorite, and that's how it be sometimes. So that is my opinion on Ultramega OK by Soundgarden. So I have it at D. Nevermind, S tier, baby. And I think it's like right. It's neck and neck between freaking Dirt and Nevermind. Nevermind, you know, it just has that poppy punk rock type of sound. And it's so fun, legendary, lots of things I could say, but we already know. What am I going to say that's very different, you know what I'm saying? And yeah, Nevermind, S tier, yeah, easily. Next up, you got In Utero, baby, and that's a defo S tier as well. S tier, and not only S tier, I like it more than Nevermind. I'm not going to lie to you, man. I like it more than Nevermind. You got Francis Farmer on there. You got freaking R-Word Me. You got freaking Dumb. You got Heart Shaped Box. You got, what's that other song, bro? I'm trying to remember. Dude, I'm dumb. AF. Scentless Apprentice. The drums on there. Dave Grohl. Going Crazy. That's the best song on here in my opinion. Very aggressive. Very in your face. In your ear. Screeching like crazy. That was pure bliss. And thank you, Nirvana. I really appreciate that. R.I.P. Kurt Cobain, the legend. You know? Yeah. In Utero, man. I am in love with this album. This album has done so much for me in my life, man. It's really inspired me to write music. It inspired me to just, you know, just be myself and just, you know, just, I don't know, man. I freaking love this album. I love Nirvana for sure. So, easy S tier. That's all I got to say. All right, the final Nirvana album, we got Bleach. This album is an A tier, man. It is an A tier, and I think it's right here. First place, A tier. Isn't that crazy? Do you think I'm very Nirvana biased? I don't care what you got to say, man. It is what it is. Dude, when I was in my old band, Force of Habit, we would play Negative Creep like crazy. I love that song. It's so fun to play. You're just like screaming and just it's basically like a freaking Lemmy impression from Motorhead. And it's funny, but it's really good. You got Blue on here. That's a top tier Nirvana song, dude. The amount of songs on this album is crazy. Jack and Dino, I think, produced it, engineered, whatever, had his hands on it. Legendary humanoid within the music scene there and now. And I remember hearing a lot of people back then not being fans of this album. There were also people that adored this album, and then, you know, their next album with Butch Vig was Nevermind and all that stuff. So yeah, I love that album. Bleach, so good, so good. Thank you, Nirvana. Okay, next up we got Stone Temple Pilots, the Vatican gift shop thing. And there's a lot of good songs on here. There's some like softer songs in here that I really like, but I don't think it's their strongest album, so I have it at mid. Sorry for, you know, whatever. But I have it at mid, and that's the first Stone Temple Pilots album at mid. Pearl Jam 10, S tier. Even Flow, Jeremy, Once, there's so many tunes on here. I mean, really, what am I supposed to say about 10? You know what I'm saying? It's legendary. A lot of songs on there. You know, I got a Pearl Jam vintage shirt right there. Check out my last video, vintage Banty recent pickups. Very fun video. You will like it. Please like it, by the way. And yeah, so let's move on. All right, these next Pearl Jam albums are so mid, forgettable, Yield, and some stuff that I've never listened to, but I still think it's mid. And yeah, that's the end of this freaking tier list. Let me know if I went crazy or if I look dumb. I think this is pretty good. Some of you might think I'm tripping. Don't care, man. You're talking to the Grunge King, and I say that with 80% confidence. Yeah, man, looking back at these albums, it's just so funny because I used to be so, you know, trying to get as much information as I could back then about these albums, the producers, the stories. I would watch MTV 90s interviews with Chris Cornell and this one British interviewer girl, and it was just like a lot of people talking about, you know, the album, promoting stuff, and it was so awesome just to look. It was all on YouTube, by the way, and you could just watch it. It was fun. It was a great time, just like learning stuff, I guess, for myself. And yeah, yeah, grunge. Like and subscribe. Keep the music alive. Grunge will never die.